The starship Eternal Conquest hung in the darkness of space like a massive metal predator. Its silver hull gleamed under the light of an unfamiliar yellow sun. Inside the main command center, Commander Tyke stood with his hands clasped behind, his back staring at the view screen. The blue and green planet filled the display, turning slowly against the black backdrop of space. "Another world for the Ryler Confederation," Tyke said. His voice was deep and confident. He had done this 11 times before. 12 star systems had fallen to the Ryler forces, and not once had they faced real resistance. Second Commander Han approached, carrying a data tablet. He was shorter than Tyke, but just as proud in his bearing. The dark uniform he wore had many medals pinned to the chest, each one marking a successful conquest. "The scans are complete, Commander," Han said. He handed the tablet to Tyke. "The planet is mostly water. It has an oxygen atmosphere. There are about 8 billion living beings of the dominant species." Tyke scrolled through the information with a slight smile. "What about their technology?" "Very basic," Han replied. "They have reached their moon, but no farther. Their weapons use simple chemicals and basic atomic power. Nothing that can harm our ships." Tyke nodded, pleased with the report. This would be another easy victory for his record. The High Command would be pleased. Perhaps after this conquest they would finally promote him to the rank of High Commander. "Their communication technologies," Tyke asked, still reviewing the data. "Primitive radio waves and digital signals. We can easily understand them. They call their planet Earth and themselves humans." Tyke handed the tablet back to Han. The bridge crew worked quietly around them, each Ryler soldier focused on their tasks. The ship's engines hummed with power. Outside the viewports, 20 other Ryler warships waited in formation. "Send the standard message," Tyke ordered. "Give them 24 hours to surrender control of their planet to the Ryler Confederation." Lieutenant Gina turned from her communication station. Her uniform was crisp, and her eyes showed intelligence. Among the bridge crew, she had the best understanding of other species. "Commander, should we study their cultures first? Our database shows they have many different nations and languages." Tyke waved his hand dismissively. "That won't be necessary, Lieutenant. They are primitives. They will either surrender or be conquered. There is no third option." Gina hesitated but then turned back to her station. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel. "Sending the message now, Commander. It will be broadcast in their most common languages." Tyke nodded and turned to look at the planet again. So blue, so peaceful. Soon it would belong to the Ryler, like all the others before it. "Prepare the landing ships," he ordered. "Select our best soldiers for the first wave. I want this conquest to be quick and efficient." The bridge crew worked faster, carrying out his commands. The Ryler were a disciplined species. They had built their confederation through perfect organization and superior technology. Their armor was impenetrable to most weapons. Their ships could travel between stars in days instead of years. Their energy weapons could destroy cities in minutes. "Commander," Gina called suddenly. Her voice showed surprise. "We are receiving a response already." Tyke raised an eyebrow. This was unusual. Most species took hours or even the full day to respond, often spending time in panic or useless discussion. "Put it on the main screen," he ordered. The image of the planet disappeared, replaced by the face of a human female. She had dark hair pulled back from her face and wore a simple dark uniform with no obvious rank markings. "I am Sook, representing the people of Earth," she said calmly. "We have received your message and request a face-to-face meeting before any decisions are made." Tyke laughed. The other bridge officers joined him. The human looked so serious, so confident. She had no idea what she was facing. "They want to meet us," Tyke said, still smiling. "How brave of them." Han stepped forward, looking concerned. "Commander, this is unusual. They should be frightened. Perhaps it is a trap?" Tyke shook his head. "What trap could primitives set for us? Our scans show their technology level. They cannot harm us." He stepped closer to the screen, studying the human called Sook. Her expression remained calm, showing no fear. Very well, Tyke said. We accept your request for a meeting. Send coordinates. For a suitable location, I will bring 12 of my soldiers. You may bring 5 unarmed representatives. Suk nodded once. Thank you, Commander. We will send the coordinates shortly. We look forward to meeting the Ryler in person. The screen went dark, returning to the view of the planet. That was interesting, Gina said quietly. Tyke turned to his officers. Prepare my personal landing ship. Select 12 of our elite guard to accompany me. Full combat suits and weapons. Han looked worried. Commander, perhaps I should go instead. If something happens, nothing will happen, Tyke interrupted. I want to see these humans up close before we conquer them. It is always good to know what new subjects are like. 6 hours later, Tyke stood in the landing bay, surrounded by his chosen guards. Each soldier wore the advanced combat armor of the Ryler, black metal suits that enhanced their strength and protected them from all known weapons. Each carried an energy rifle that could cut through concrete walls. Remember, Tyke told them as they boarded the landing ship, show strength, but no aggression unless I command it. These humans must understand our power. The landing ship detached from the Eternal Conquest and moved toward the blue planet. Through the viewport, Tyke watched the planet grow larger. Clouds swirled over blue oceans and green and brown land masses. It was beautiful, he had to admit. The Ryler Confederation would put it to good use. As the ship entered the atmosphere, heat glowed around the hull. Tyke felt the slight rumble as they pushed through clouds and air. The ship's computer followed the coordinates the humans had provided, an open field in a region they called North America. Final approach, the pilot announced. Scans show a small group of humans waiting at the landing site. No heavy weapons detected. Tyke nodded, satisfied. Land directly in front of them. Let them see our technology up close. The landing ship descended smoothly, touching down on green grass. The door opened and a ramp extended to the ground. Tyke stepped out first, his black armor gleaming in the sunlight. The air smelled different from his homeworld, fresher somehow. His 12 guards formed a perfect line behind him. Ahead, 5 humans stood waiting. The one in the center was Suk, the woman from the communication. She stepped forward, alone, and seemingly unafraid. Welcome to Earth, Commander Tyke, she said. We have much to discuss. Tyke studied her, surprised by her confidence. These humans were either very brave or very foolish. Either way, their planet would soon belong to the Ryler Confederation. What the Ryler didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this day for generations, and the invaders were about to learn a painful lesson about underestimating their prey. The meeting area was a large open field surrounded by tall trees. Commander Tyke stood tall in his black combat armor, towering over the human delegation. His 12 elite soldiers formed a semicircle behind him, their weapons held ready but not pointed at the humans. Not yet. Suk stepped forward. She wore a simple gray uniform with no visible weapons. The 4 humans behind her were dressed similarly. They looked calm, which confused Tyke. Most species showed fear when faced with Ryler soldiers. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Suk said. Her voice was steady. We understand you want our planet to join your confederation. Tyke nodded. The Ryler Confederation brings order and progress to all worlds we encounter. Your civilization will benefit from our technology and protection. And if we refuse, Suk asked, her head tilted slightly, then we will take your world by force, Tyke said simply. Your weapons cannot harm our ships or our soldiers. Surrender now and fewer humans will die. Suk looked at her companions, then back to Tyke. We have prepared something to show you before you make your final decision. She raised a small device in her hand and pressed a button. Tyke tensed, expecting some kind of primitive attack. Instead, a low humming sound filled the air. What is this? Tyke demanded. A demonstration, Suk replied. The ground beneath them trembled slightly. Tyke's communication officer touched the side of his helmet. Commander, we've lost contact with the fleet, he reported, concern clear in his voice. Tyke turned back to Suk, his hand moving to his weapon. "What have you done?" "Nothing permanent," she said. "Just a communication jammer. We thought it would be better if we talked privately." Before Tyke could respond, movement caught his eye. From the tree line, human soldiers emerged, not 5 or 10, but hundreds. They wore armored suits unlike anything in the Ryler intelligence reports. The suits were bulky, painted in green and brown patterns to blend with the environment. "This meeting is over," Tyke said coldly. "Your deception will cost your planet dearly." He raised his energy rifle and aimed it at Suk. The weapon hummed as it charged, ready to fire a blast that would vaporize the human instantly. Suk didn't move. "I wouldn't do that." Too late, Tyke realized more humans had appeared behind his soldiers. They carried large, strange-looking weapons. Before he could give the order to fire, the humans fired first. The sound was deafening, not the high-pitched whine of energy weapons, but the sharp crack of projectiles moving at incredible speed. 3 of Tyke's soldiers fell immediately, their supposedly impenetrable armor punctured by simple metal bullets. "Impossible," one of the Ryler soldiers shouted. "Our armor—" He never finished the sentence. Another round of gunfire erupted, and more Ryler soldiers dropped to the ground. Tyke fired his weapon at the nearest human soldier. The energy beam struck the human's chest plate, but instead of burning through, it scattered, dissipated by some kind of coating on the armor. "Fall back," Tyke ordered his remaining soldiers. "Defensive formation." The Ryler tried to form a circle, backs together, facing outward, but the humans had surrounded them completely. More soldiers emerged from hidden bunkers beneath the field itself. Lieutenant Gina tried to activate their emergency beacon, the signal that would bring an immediate attack from the orbiting fleet. Her hand moved to her wrist controller. "It's not working," she told Tyke, panic in her voice. "Nothing is responding." A new sound filled the air as large vehicles rolled into the clearing. They moved on tracks and had long barrels pointing forward. Tanks, the Ryler intelligence called them. Primitive but effective ground vehicles. Tyke realized with growing horror that the humans had planned this carefully. The meeting place, the timing, everything had been designed to isolate the Ryler. "Landing party. Commander, what do we do?" one of his remaining soldiers asked. Before Tyke could answer, Suk approached again. She now wore powered armor, similar to the other human soldiers. Her helmet was open, showing her face. "Your armor is impressive," she said. "But we noticed something during our long-range scans. It stops energy weapons very well, but it has weak points against high-velocity physical impacts." Tyke stared at her. "How could you know that? Your species has never encountered the Ryler before." Suk smiled slightly. "We've been watching the stars for a long time, Commander. You're not the first advanced species we've encountered, just the most aggressive." The remaining Ryler soldiers looked to Tyke for orders. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and their supposedly superior technology was failing against simple human weapons. "You have 2 choices," Suk continued. "Surrender now, and no more of your soldiers will die. Or fight, and none of you will return to your fleet." Tyke had never surrendered in his life. The very concept was foreign to Ryler military doctrine. But he was a tactical commander, and he recognized when a battle was lost. "If we surrender, what then?" he asked carefully. "Then we talk," Suk replied. "Really talk. About why you're here, and what the Ryler Confederation truly wants." A human soldier approached Suk and whispered something in her ear. She nodded and looked back at Tyke. "Your fleet is attempting to scan through our jammers. They'll be sending more ships soon. You need to decide quickly." Tyke looked at his fallen soldiers, then at the remaining few still standing. "Lieutenant." Gina stood beside him, her armor dented by bullet impacts that should have been impossible. "We will talk," Tyke said finally. "But know this, the Ryler Confederation does not accept defeat easily. Our fleet will attack when we don't return." Suk seemed unconcerned. "Then we should hurry." She nodded to the human soldiers who approached to take the Ryler weapons. As Tyke surrendered his rifle, he noticed something about the human weapons. They were simple in design, using basic principles of chemistry and physics to propel metal projectiles. But they were perfectly engineered, refined to devastating effectiveness. The humans led the Ryler prisoners toward one of their vehicles. As they walked, Tyke saw more human defenses emerging from hidden positions. Anti-aircraft guns, missile launchers, and other weapons he didn't recognize. "Your technology," Tyke said to Sook as they walked. "It's not primitive at all." "No," she agreed. "Just different. We chose different priorities than the Ryler, it seems." As the vehicle doors closed around them, Tyke realized the Ryler Confederation had made a terrible mistake. The humans were not the easy prey they had appeared to be. The conquest of Earth would not be quick or simple. And in orbit, unaware of what had happened below, the Ryler fleet was preparing for a battle they did not understand against an enemy they had fatally underestimated. On board the Eternal Conquest, the mood had shifted from confidence to concern. It had been 6 hours since Commander Tyke and his landing party had gone silent. The main bridge was tense as officers worked frantically at their stations. Admiral Munn stood at the central command platform, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the gleaming floor. He had arrived from the support vessel when the situation became critical. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes were hard as he watched the tactical displays. "Still no communication with the commander?" he asked, his voice calm despite the circumstances. Strategic Officer Jin shook his head. His uniform was perfectly pressed, but dark circles under his eyes revealed the stress of the past hours. "Nothing, Admiral. The humans are using some kind of jamming technology that blocks all our signals. We can't even locate the tracking beacons in their combat suits." Admiral Munn walked to the main view screen, which showed the blue planet turning slowly below them. "Show me the footage from the landing party again." Jin tapped commands into his console. The screen changed to show video from Commander Take's helmet camera. They watched as the initial meeting began peacefully, then suddenly shifted when the human named Sook activated a device. The video became jumpy, showing flashes of human soldiers appearing from hidden positions. The last clear image was of Ryler soldiers falling, their armor somehow penetrated by primitive projectile weapons. Then the video cut to static. "It doesn't make sense," Moon said quietly. "Their technology shouldn't be capable of this." Jin hesitated before speaking. "Admiral, I believe our initial assessment of the humans was incomplete." He brought up new information on the tactical display. "We've been analyzing their global communication network since our arrival. Their technology is inconsistent. In some areas, like space travel, they are indeed primitive, but in others..." Jin displayed images of human weapons and defenses that had been captured by Ryler scanning systems in the past hours. They have focused their development in unexpected directions. Their projectile weapons use simple principles but are refined to extraordinary levels of effectiveness. They've developed materials that can disperse energy weapon impacts, and most concerning of all, they have detection systems that can track our stealth scout ships. As if to confirm his words, an alarm sounded across the bridge. A junior officer called out from her station. "Scout ships 3 and 4 have gone offline. They were patrolling the northern hemisphere." Admiral Munn turned sharply. "What happened?" "Unknown, sir. One moment they were sending telemetry, the next they were gone." Jin moved quickly to another console, bringing up a map of Earth with Ryler ship positions marked in red. "That makes 5 scout ships lost in the past 12 hours. Munn stared at the display, his mind racing through possibilities. The Ryler Confederation had conquered 12 star systems without ever losing more than a handful of ships. Now 5 scout ships were gone, along with Commander Tyke and his elite soldiers. "Sir," Jin said carefully, "I believe we've encountered something unprecedented. The humans aren't just fighting back, they're adapting to our tactics at an alarming rate." "Explain," Munn ordered. Jin brought up a comparison of human defensive positions from their first scans and the current situation. 6 hours ago, their anti-air defenses were concentrated around their major cities. Now they've repositioned to create overlapping fields of fire specifically designed to catch our scout ships. He continued, pointing to more data. They're communicating globally, sharing information about our technology, and coordinating their response. Each time we lose a ship, they learn more about our capabilities. Mun considered this information. In 12 conquests, The Ryler had never encountered a species that could adapt so quickly. Standard procedure called for orbital bombardment followed by ground invasion. But if the humans could defeat Ryler ground forces and bring down scout ships, we need more information, Mun decided. Prepare a drone swarm. Target their largest military installations. I want to see how they respond to a larger attack. Jin nodded and began entering commands. Within minutes, 100 small attack drones launched from the Eternal Conquest. Each was about the size of a Ryler soldier, armed with a scaled-down version of the ship's energy weapons. The bridge crew watched the tactical display as the drones entered Earth's atmosphere, spreading out toward different targets. First target in range, a weapons officer reported. Military base in region designated North America. Begin attack, Mun ordered. On the screen, they watched as the drones opened fire on the human military base. Buildings exploded as energy beams struck them. Human vehicles burned. But then something unexpected happened. Sir, the humans are responding with... Are those aircraft? Jin asked in disbelief. Small, fast-moving craft rose from hidden hangars. They were sleek and angular, designed for speed and maneuverability rather than the heavy armor the Ryler preferred. Their design is primitive, Jin said, studying the readings. Chemical propulsion, no energy weapons, but the way they're moving... The human aircraft engaged the Ryler drones with surprising effectiveness. They didn't try to match the drones' firepower, but instead used their speed and agility to avoid being hit while getting close enough to use their own weapons. Drone Group 3 is down by 50%, the weapons officer reported, unable to keep the shock from his voice. Jin studied the tactical data, his expression growing more troubled. Admiral, they're not just reacting. They're communicating tactics between defense groups. Look at this. He showed how human forces in one region had found an effective method of disabling the drones, and within minutes, human forces in other regions had adopted the same approach. Mun watched as more drones were destroyed. How is this possible? Their global communication shouldn't be this efficient. They have a global information network, Jin explained. It's not as advanced as our quantum communication, but it's resilient, decentralized. We can't disable it with targeted strikes. As they spoke, a new alert sounded. One of the bridge officers looked up with alarm. Sir, we're detecting multiple launches from the planet's surface, hundreds of them, rising from different continents. Jin quickly analyzed the data. They appear to be missiles. Primitive nuclear propulsion, but they're adjusting course. They're targeting our fleet. Admiral Mun didn't hesitate. Raise shields on all vessels. Prepare point defense systems. The first wave of human missiles approached the Ryler fleet. Most were destroyed by defensive fire, but some got through, detonating against the shields of several ships. Damage report, Mun demanded. Shield strength, reduced by 20% on 3 vessels, came the response. No hull breaches, but, sir, the second wave is already launching. The humans are using the first wave to calibrate their targeting. Mun turned to Jin, his expression now openly concerned. This species, they don't fight like any we've encountered before. Jin nodded grimly. They're not just a single civilization fighting as one. They're billions of individuals thinking and adapting independently but working toward a common goal. They don't follow standard military doctrine. They improvise. As if to emphasize his point, alarms rang out again as new threats appeared on the sensors. Admiral Mun made a decision. Pull back the fleet to high orbit. Recall all remaining drones and scout ships. We need to reconsider our approach. As the Ryler ships moved to safer positions, Jin continued studying the human responses. What he saw troubled him deeply. The humans weren't just defending their world. They were learning, adapting, and preparing for the next move in a game the Ryler had always assumed they would win. Admiral, Jin said quietly, I believe we may have found the most dangerous species in the galaxy, not because of their technology, but because of how they think. The Ryler War Council gathered in the secure chamber aboard the command ship. Admiral Mun sat at the head of the long black table, with Strategic Officer Jin on his right. 6 other high-ranking officers filled the remaining seats. The mood was somber. None of them had expected the conquest of Earth to become so difficult. "We must proceed with standard conquest protocol," said Colonel Yun, the oldest of the officers. His face was scarred from battles fought long ago. Orbital bombardment of their military centers, followed by mass deployment of ground forces. Admiral Moon looked at the holographic display hovering above the center of the table. It showed Earth with red dots marking human military installations and blue dots showing civilian population centers. "The situation is not standard," Moon replied. "We've lost contact with Commander Tyke's team, 5 scout ships and 78 attack drones. We need to understand what we're facing before we commit our main forces." Jin touched the display controls, and the image zoomed in to show a human military base partially destroyed by Ryler drones. "This is their Pacific Defense Center 12. Hours after our drone attack," Jin explained. "They've already rebuilt their defensive positions. Notice how they've adapted their design based on what they learned about our weapons." The officers studied the images with growing concern. The humans had reinforced their structures with materials that would better withstand energy weapons. They had moved critical systems underground and set up decoy targets to draw fire. "They learned too quickly," said Fleet Commander Ray, her voice sharp with frustration. "But they are still technologically inferior. Our heavy dropships can deploy 10,000 soldiers in the first wave. They cannot possibly resist such numbers." Jin changed the display again. "We intercepted this human communication 1 hour ago. Their leaders are discussing our technology." A recording played. The humans spoke in their own language, but Ryler translation software converted it to words the officers could understand. "They're using a standard shield configuration," a human voice said. "Energy dispersal with overlapping fields. If we concentrate fire from multiple directions, we can create stress points in the matrix." The Ryler officers looked at each other, in alarm. That was accurate information about Ryler's shield technology. Information the humans should not have. "How did they learn this?" Colonel Yun demanded. Jin's expression was grim. "They've recovered pieces from our downed scout ships. Their scientists are reverse engineering our technology at an alarming rate." The display changed to show a human facility where pieces of Ryler technology were being studied by dozens of human scientists. "I recommend immediate, full-scale orbital bombardment," Colonel Yun said. "Destroy their largest population centers first. Break their will to resist." Admiral Moon shook his head. "The High Command wants this planet intact. Its resources are valuable, and the Confederation needs new territories for expansion." "Then we must deploy ground forces now," Fleet Commander Ray insisted, "before they learn more about our technology." After further discussion, Admiral Moon made his decision. "Prepare 300 dropships. Target military installations across their world. We will deploy 90,000 troops in the first wave." The officers nodded in agreement. This was the largest initial deployment in Ryler conquest history, a sign of how seriously they now took the human threat. 3 hours later, Colonel Hyun stood in the command center of Dropship Carrier 7. Through the viewport, he could see Earth growing larger as they descended toward the atmosphere. Behind his ship, dozens of other massive carriers held position, each containing 30 dropships filled with Ryler soldiers. "Status report," Hyun ordered. His tactical officer, G, looked up from her console. "All systems operational, Colonel. Our target is a region they call Eastern Europe. 3 primary military bases and surrounding support infrastructure." Hyun studied the tactical display. His carrier held 9,000 soldiers, the most experienced troops in the 3rd Division. They had conquered 4 worlds before this one. They were the best the Ryler Confederation had to offer. "Their defenses?" Hyun asked. "Standard military installations," G replied. "Air defense systems, missile launchers, armored vehicles. Nothing our troops cannot handle." Hyun frowned slightly. "Do not underestimate these humans, Lieutenant. They have already surprised us several times." G nodded. "Understood, sir. But our new combat suits have been reinforced against their projectile weapons, and our soldiers outnumber theirs in the target region by 10 to 1. The carrier shuddered. slightly as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Hyun watched the tactical display as the other carriers took position across the planet. It was an impressive sight. 10 massive ships, each deploying 30 dropships. 300 landing craft, each carrying 300 soldiers. 90,000 Ryler warriors descending upon Earth. Deployment begins in 3 minutes, Ji announced. First wave dropships are launching now. Hyun watched as the first 10 dropships launched from his carrier, followed quickly by 10 more. Each rectangular craft was heavily armored and carried weapons capable of destroying human tanks and aircraft. Enemy response? Hyun asked. Ji studied her readings. They're tracking our descent. Air defense systems activating. Missile launches detected. The first wave of dropships entered lower atmosphere, pushing through clouds toward their targets below. On the tactical display, Hyun saw human missiles rising to meet them. Most were intercepted by the dropship's defense systems, but some got through. 3 dropships trailing smoke as they continued their descent. They're using new missile types, Ji reported, surprise in her voice. Heat signatures suggest they've incorporated elements of our own technology. Hyun moved closer to the display. That was impossible. The humans couldn't have adapted Ryler technology so quickly. Second wave launching now, Ji announced. Another 10 dropships left the carrier following the first group down. But as they descended, something unexpected happened. Colonel, we're tracking hundreds of new launches from the surface, Ji called out, her voice rising. No, thousands. The tactical display lit up with countless small objects rising from Earth's surface. They came from everywhere. Cities, forests, oceans. What are those? Hyun demanded. They can't have that many missiles. Ji worked frantically at her console. They're not standard missiles, they're smaller, simpler, but there are so many of them. On the display, Hyun watched in horror as the cloud of small projectiles surrounded the dropships. The defensive systems were overwhelmed by the sheer numbers. Dropships began falling from the sky, trailing fire and smoke. How is this possible? Hyun whispered. They can't have that kind of firepower. Ji looked up, her face pale. Sir, they're not using military launchers. These are coming from everywhere. Civilian areas, individual launchers, millions of them working together. Hyun suddenly understood. The humans weren't fighting like a conventional military force. They were fighting like billions of individual warriors with a common cause. Their strength wasn't in their technology or their military doctrine. It was in their numbers and their creativity. Abort the drop, Hyun ordered. Recall all ships. But it was too late. Already 40% of the first wave dropships had been destroyed or disabled. The second wave was facing even heavier resistance as the humans adjusted their tactics. Hyun watched the disaster unfold on his screens. The greatest military force in the known galaxy was being defeated by a supposedly primitive species using improvised weapons and unpredictable tactics. Sir, Ji said quietly, the humans are broadcasting a message to all our ships. Let me hear it, Hyun ordered. A human voice filled the command center. It was Suk, the woman who had captured Commander Taek. Ryler forces, she said calmly. You have seen what we can do. We do not wish to destroy you, but we will defend our world. Return to your fleet. Take your commander and your captured soldiers with you. Leave our system, and we will consider this a misunderstanding rather than an act of war. Hyun looked at the tactical display again. More dropships were falling. The grand invasion was turning into the worst defeat in Ryler history. With a heavy heart, he opened a channel to Admiral Moon. The conquest of Earth would not happen today. Perhaps it would not happen at all. Fleet Admiral Moon stood alone at the observation window of the eternal conquest. Earth hung in the darkness below, blue and green and peaceful looking. It was hard to believe that this beautiful planet had dealt the Ryler Confederation its first defeat in 800 years. Behind him, the door slid open. Mun did not need to turn to know who had entered. Only one person would dare disturb him now. The report is complete, Admiral, said Strategic Officer Jin. His voice was tired. Neither of them had slept in 3 days. Mun turned slowly. Jin held a data tablet containing the full account of the failed invasion. It would be transmitted to the High Command, and Moon would bear the responsibility for this historic failure. How bad are the numbers? Moon asked quietly. Jin's face remained professional, but his eyes showed pain. 117 dropships destroyed, 42,000 soldiers killed or missing, 23 capital ships damaged by ground to space. Weapons! Moon closed his eyes briefly. So many Ryler lives lost. The worst military disaster in the history of the Confederation. And the humans? He asked. They suffered significant damage to military installations and some civilian infrastructure, but their casualties were minimal compared to ours. Moon nodded slowly. He had expected this. The humans had proven themselves to be remarkably resilient and adaptive. The prisoner exchange is complete, Jin continued. Commander Tyke and the surviving members of his landing party have been returned to us. This was the one piece of good news. The humans had honored their offer to return the captured Ryler soldiers. It was a gesture that confused many of the Ryler officers. In their military doctrine, prisoners were valuable resources, not to be returned without significant concessions. Where is Tyke now? Moon asked. In medical. His injuries are minor. He wishes to speak with you when you are ready. Moon turned back to the window, staring at the planet below. Prepare the quantum link to High Command. I will deliver the report. Myself, Jin hesitated. Sir, there is one more thing. The human leader Suk sent a message for you personally. Moon raised an eyebrow. Play it. Jin activated his tablet and Suk's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but determined. Admiral Moon, she said. By now you understand that conquering Earth would cost more than the Ryler Confederation is willing to pay. We do not seek war with you. We only wish to be left in peace. Your ships are damaged. Your soldiers are weary. Take them home. There is no shame in recognizing when a battle cannot be won. The message ended. Moon considered her words carefully. There was wisdom in them, but also something else. Pride perhaps, but not arrogance. The humans had defeated the mighty Ryler fleet, yet they offered peace rather than pressing their advantage. A strange species, Moon said quietly. Indeed, Jin agreed. I've been studying them since the battle. They have thousands of different cultures, languages, and belief systems. They fight constantly among themselves over resources, territory, and ideologies. Yet when faced with an external threat, they united with remarkable speed and effectiveness. Mun nodded. Prepare the fleet for departure. We will leave this system once repairs are complete. Jin looked surprised. Without authorization from High Command? I will deal with the High Command, Mun said firmly. I will not sacrifice more. Ryler lives in a battle we cannot win. Later, Mun visited Commander Tyek in the medical bay. The commander lay on a bed, staring at the ceiling. His armor had been removed and bandages covered wounds on his arms and chest. When he saw the Admiral enter, he tried to sit up. Remain as you are, Commander, Moon said, pulling a chair beside the bed. You have earned your rest. Tyek's eyes were troubled. I failed, Admiral. I underestimated the humans. We all did, Moon replied. Tell me about them. You spent time as their prisoner. What did you learn? Tyke was silent for a moment, gathering his thoughts. They are unlike any species we have encountered. Their technology is uneven. In some areas, they are centuries behind us, in others, surprisingly advanced. But it is not their technology that makes them dangerous. What then? Moon asked. Their adaptability, their creativity, the way they think. Tyke struggled to find the right words. The humans who captured me explained that their species evolved as prey animals that became predators. They were hunted before they became hunters. It shaped how they see the world. Moon considered this. The Ryler had evolved as apex predators on their home world. They had never known what it was to be hunted. They showed me their history, Tuck continued. Thousands of years of warfare, constantly developing new ways to kill each other. But also art, music, philosophy. They create simply for the joy of creating. They question everything, including their own beliefs. And now they have pieces of our technology, Moon said grimly. Yes. Their scientists were studying our weapons, our communication devices, even our armor while I was their prisoner. They learn quickly, Admiral. Very quickly. Moon stood and walked to the viewport. From this angle, he could see the damaged Ryler ships undergoing repairs. So much destruction. And for what? A planet that could not be conquered at an acceptable cost. The High Command will not be pleased, Moon said finally. They have never ordered a retreat before. Tyke looked at the Admiral. What will you tell them? The truth. That we encountered a species unlike any we have faced before. That conquering their world would require resources the Confederation cannot spare. Hours later, Moon stood before the quantum projector in the communication chamber. The images of the 7 members of the High Command appeared before him, their faces stern and unreadable. Fleet Admiral Moon, said High Commander Day, the leader of the Ryler military. We have reviewed your preliminary report. You propose abandoning the conquest of Earth. Explain yourself. Moon stood straight, his voice firm. High Commander, members of the High Command. In 3 standard weeks of operations against Earth, we have lost 40% of our invasion force. The humans have demonstrated capabilities far beyond our initial assessment. They have reverse-engineered components from our downed vessels and deployed countermeasures within days. They are a pre-FTL civilization, another commander objected. Their technology is primitive. Their space technology is limited, Moon agreed. But they have focused their development in other areas. Their adaptability and rate of technological advancement is unprecedented. He showed them footage from the failed dropship invasion, the swarms of simple missiles overwhelming Ryler defenses, through sheer numbers. They do not fight like a unified civilization but like billions of individual warriors with a common cause, Moon explained. Their technology isn't advanced in the way we measure advancement. It's different, practical, adaptable. The High Command members conferred among themselves, speaking too quietly for Moon to hear. Finally, High Commander Day addressed him again. Very well, Admiral Moon. You are authorized to withdraw from the Earth system. The Confederation will reconsider its approach to this species. After the communication ended, Moon returned to the observation deck. Lieutenant Gina was there watching Earth through the viewport. Beside her stood Commander Tyek, who had been released from medical. Orders, Admiral? Gina asked. We're leaving, Moon replied simply. Tyek nodded, his expression somber. I spoke with their leaders during my captivity. Do you know what they told me? That we weren't the first to underestimate them, and we wouldn't be the last. Gina looked puzzled. Have they encountered other spacefaring species before us? They didn't say, but I believe they have. Tykes' eyes remained fixed on the planet, below. I've recommended quarantine status for the entire system. Because they're dangerous? Gina asked. Because they're teachers, Tyke replied. And I believe we have much to learn. As the Ryler fleet moved away from Earth, the blue planet continued its peaceful orbit around its yellow star. On its surface, humans were already incorporating Ryler technology into their defenses, preparing for the next visitors who might think themselves invincible. And in the vast archives of the Ryler Confederation, Earth would be marked not as a conquest but as a warning. Never underestimate the species that calls itself human.